Let's get through the rigmarole first before we start this podcast. Remember, guys, this podcast posts each and every single Saturday where we run through all the NFL news you need to know about. I can't wait for the NFL season to start. It's so close. Each and every week passes by. So it's like we got one after this month's over. Obviously, preseason starts in August. It just feels like it's been so long since we've seen a down of football. And I'm sick and tired of watching replay again. I just can't wait to have something to talk about. We can actually talk about football games on this podcast. So I can't wait. So let's get into the NFL news. Let's see here. This first piece of news is an assault accusation against Tennessee Titans wide receiver Tajae Sharpe. And I guess we're just going to read this here. This is just the latest on his accusation. Back in May, Titans receiver Tajae Sharpe and offensive guard Sebastian Tretola, can't say his name, were accused of assault in a federal civil suit. Now, according to WKRN.com, the duo is countersuing the accuser. So there you go, they're countersuing. Who cares? I don't care about Tajae Sharpe. That is going to be a tough team to make if you're Tajae Sharpe. Now, especially since you're in some kind of crapping lawsuit, for God's sakes. You got Eric Decker, Corey Davis, Rashard Matthews, Kendall Wright. That team is really made, like, they had one of the worst receiver cores last year, and their best receiving threat was Delanie Walker, who, believe it or not, is getting up there in age. The former 49er is getting up there in age, but he's still a great player, and a lot of people forget how undersized Delanie Walker is, and he's still a beast of a tight end. Most, all-pro tight ends in the NFL are like 6'5" up. And he's like, I think he's maybe 6'2". I can't remember how tall Delanie Walker is. All right, so this next report is concerning Blake Bortles and his situation down there in Jacksonville. A lot of speculation, obviously, going into this. People, I don't know how I know I have a Jaguars friend that, he still has faith in Blake Bortles. Colin Kaepernick, I thought would have been a great fit for them. He's still out there on the free agent market. So who knows? So this article is by Connor Brine. You can check it out on Pro Football Rumors. The title of the article is "Make or Break Year for Blake Bortles," and I think we all know that. I think people said that last year, and he's had terrible offensive line, and I'm not going to blame it. And not everything is his fault, but he definitely has he has really talented skill positions. His running backs haven't always been there. Obviously, there was a lot of hype going into the 2016 season with Chris Ivory that they signed. I've always been a fan of TJ Yeldon, and I still think he's a good back. I think if they get that, they improve that offensive line. Obviously, the addition of Leonard Fournette, and they still have Allen Hurns and Allen Robinson, but he's always had great wide receivers for the last 3 years now. All right, so let's get into this. Quarterback, this again, an article by Connor Brine. Quarterback Blake Bortles is under Jaguars' control for the next 2 years, but it's reasonable to suggest he's entering the quintessential make-or-break season. The Jaguars decided in May to pick up Bortles' fifth-year option for 2018, which will cost them upwards of $19 million. If he plays the year under it, though that's guaranteed for injury only, then that means they'll be able to end the Bortles experiment next offseason. If he struggles through 2017 but emerges with his health intact, staying on the field hasn't been an issue to this point. Bortles has appeared in no fewer than 14 games in any of his 3 seasons and played full slate in each of the previous 2 years. So Bortles, he's always been a durable core. He's a big dude. He got a lot coming out of the draft. Ton of comparisons to Ben Roethlisberger. Interesting, I don't know. Blake Bortles, he shows flashes of, he's obviously the king of garbage time touchdowns. He did have a top 100 NFL players appearance. I think he threw for 30-plus touchdowns that season, and the Jaguars barely won anything, but, he's when I say he's the king of garbage time, you look at most of his touchdowns were scored when he's down 10 or more points. And the Jaguars, they have a really talented defense with the addition of Jalen Ramsey, Deshaun Gibson. They're hoping he can stay healthy. They got Barry Church in free agency. They got Calais Campbell in free agency. They got A.J. Boye, the Houston Texans, he broke out last year. And hopefully he's not a tease and then goes to the Jaguars and isn't very good. But that secondary is really good, and the front seven's really good. So with Telvin Smith, underrated. They've got a lot of underrated players on that team. So, yeah, they're on the rise, but a lot of people were buying into the Jaguars last year. A lot of people had them going 10-6, and they were too talented in an AFC South, which is just, it really improved last year, but for the last 10 years, it seems like, even more than that, the AFC South has been pretty weak. So, unless you're a Texans fan, I guess. Let's see here. All right, let's move on to here. We got some NFC news here. Kind of spreads all over the place. This one is concerning Rams defensive tackle Aaron Donald. And this report is by Connor Bryan as well. It reads, while Rams defensive tackle and extension candidate Aaron Donald could be pushing for Ndamukong Suh-like money, $20 million per year, his team control status makes securing that type of deal unlikely. Observers Mike Florio of Pro Football Talk, Suh was a free agent when he landed his massive contract with the Dolphins back in 2015. Whereas Donald can't voluntarily leave the Rams for a while. The superstar's controllable at relatively meager $10 million combined for at least the next 2 years. The Rams exercised its fifth-year option for 2018. So Aaron Donald, obviously, he's been unhappy with his deal because he is probably the best. I mean, you can make an argument that he's the all-around best defensive lineman in the league right now. Seriously, I'm trying to think of some. I mean, Von Miller is one guy that I think other than Von Miller and maybe Khalil Mack, Aaron Donald is probably the best defensive lineman in the league. He's one of those guys that he's a special player. And another guy who fell out of the top 10 in the draft because of his size. But he's such a great player. He deserves all the money he can get, and if the Rams are smart, they will lock him up for the foreseeable future. You don't want him getting to free agency, because I have a feeling if he did, somebody's going to pay him a ridiculous amount of money, because somebody like him that's a once in a lifetime defensive lineman who's going to be in the Hall of Fame one day. So, special player. This is concerning the Redskins and quarterback Kirk Cousins. With Redskins running out of time to extend quarterback Kirk Cousins by the July 17th deadline, the next week plus could solidify or destroy their future, contends Jerry Brewer of the Washington Post. Locking up the franchise tag Cousins would be a sign of stability for the Redskins, argues Brewer, who criticizes the club for lowballing the single collar in past negotiations. Washington's reluctance to buy into Cousins for the long haul has led it to franchise him in back-to-back seasons, thereby costing the team around $44 million. The Redskins, and that's about it. And nothing new. I mean, I don't know what they're going to do with Kirk Cousins. It seems to me if you're going to, like I've said this before, they're paying him a lot of money anyway. I mean, why are you so indecisive? I know, you know what? There is this draft coming up that has Josh Allen and Sam Darnold and Lamar Jackson. And I've said in the past about those three guys, a lot can change in a year. Sam Darnold looks to be like a legitimate number one quarterback. Franchise guy, but in all likelihood, if you're gonna get him, you're gonna have to tank because he's gonna go first overall. And a lot can change in a year. We saw that with Carson Wentz. I always bring up that analogy. Nobody knew Carson Wentz's name, and even Jared Goff, really, nobody expected him to go that high in the draft this year. And then a year later, both of them are apparently, at the time, people viewed them as future franchise starting quarterbacks, and a lot has changed since then, obviously, and a lot can change in a year. Who knows? Josh Allen might not look as good this upcoming season. Sam Darnold, I doubt it, but he might not look as good. Lamar Jackson might not look as good. So, it's such a weird. This is what NFL franchises don't take into account is when you gamble your future like this. You're like, okay, we could wait till next year, draft their quarterback, even though Kirk Cousins, in my opinion, is a franchise caliber quarterback. If that doesn't work out, you have literally wasted years and years of NFL fans' lives just to be stupid. And people, I feel like franchises don't take that into account sometimes. And obviously, you're trying to win, Gunner, please. See where Kirk Cousins is. I wouldn't be surprised if he's a 49er. He could be traded. It could be a Carson Palmer situation where he's traded mid-season, like the Bengals traded him to the Raiders. That would be cool. I think the number one candidate would that either of the two, I guess, would be Cleveland and San Fran, because Kyle Shanahan really likes Kirk Cousins. But interesting, it is interesting, and it sucks for Redskins fans because I'm sure I'm sure the Redskins love Kirk Cousins because he isn't a bad quarterback. He's a pretty dang good. He's the best quarterback they've had in forever. All right, so moving on from that story. This is concerning Nolan Carroll and Leotis McKelvin of the Philadelphia Eagles. Nolan Carroll and Leotis McKelvin were among the cornerbacks the Eagles railed on most last season, but the former left. That doesn't make any sense. But for the former left the Cowboys in free agency, and the latter is on the unemployment line. Now I understand now. Now with training camp approaching, the Eagles are unsure who will fill any of their top 3 corner roles. According to defensive back coach Corey Undlin, not even Jalen Mills, who finished second among Eagles cornerback snaps as a rookie last season, 662 does not have a guaranteed position. I thought the Eagles did a really good job. They got Sidney Jones, who I thought was a steal in the draft. They did a great job of, I think, fixing the secondary. So it's going to be interesting to see how that shakes out. It's probably the only real weak spot, weak spot on the roster. It goes to the article. This is interesting for information. Mills, whom Pro Football Focus ranked as the league's worst corner last season, and the underwhelming veteran trio of Patrick Robinson, Ron Brooks, and Dwayne Gratz are the only Eagles corners with real pro experience. Another point to bring up about the Philadelphia Eagles situation, they did get Sidney Jones, who, if he didn't, Sidney Jones suffered, I guess it was a pretty serious injury, but for a young guy, it shouldn't affect him that much. What was I going to say? Oh, they made a terrible trade. The New England Patriots, they just do stuff that's, I know people talk about the Patriots all the time, but the Eric Rowe trade last year, that was such a great trade. And it makes you wonder what my Dolphins were doing. Like, if you could get Eric Rowe for that price, then why wouldn't you do that? Eric Rowe, underrated young corner, and the Eagles got rid of him. And just, it's like, why? And that definitely could help them right now, that's for sure. This next story is concerning the Buccaneers. The Buccaneers waived undrafted rookie linebacker Paul Maglore at the end of May, but he'll stay with the team on injured reserves, report to Greg Unman of the Tampa Bay Times. So there you go. That's interesting. He suffered a groin injury, so that's why he's going to be on the injured reserves, in case you're wondering what injury he suffered. This really isn't news, but this is really interesting topic. Do the Giants have the best receiving trio in the NFL with Brandon Marshall, Odell Beckham, and Sterling Shepard? A lot of people forget about Sterling Shepard, who I really wanted to draft at the time, even though we didn't need him, obviously, for obvious reasons. I think we have one of the best trios in the NFL with Devontae Parker, obviously Juice Landry, and Kenny Stills. I think we have one of the best. I think, Odell Beckham, Brandon Marshall, Sterling Shepard, that's one heck of a trio because they have two guys on the outside who can really dominate a game by themselves. And then obviously you have an elite slot receiver in Sterling Shepard. So that is one heck of a combo. Definitely, some other ones to throw in there. The Dallas Cowboys have a good one with Terrence Williams, Des Bryant, and Cole Beasley. The Falcons have a good one with Mohamed Sanu, Julio Jones, and Tyler Gabriel in the slot. So those are some ones to toss out there. There's a lot of them, but I don't know about the best. I think the best last year probably was the Falcons trio. So yeah, and close second probably the Dallas Cowboys. They had a really good, they have an underrated, 1-2 punch down there in Dallas. This is another interesting topic. Do the Cowboys still have the best offensive line after losing Doug Free to retirement and Ronald Leary to free agency? Interesting topic. I would say that's a good question. Because when you think about it, the Raiders with Donald Penn, Kletchio Osemele, Rodney Hudson, who am I forgetting here? And then obviously Gabe Jackson. And so, that team's really, that offensive line is really, 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 really good. Their tackles, I mean, Tyron Smith is just a god with Travis Frederick and Zach Martin. And then you compare that to Kletchio Simile, Rodney Hudson, and I guess their third best would be Gabe Jackson. So the interior of the Raiders' offensive line is really, really good. And comparing that to the Dallas offensive line, I would probably pick the Dallas's big three over the Raiders. So yeah, I mean, I don't know if they still have the best all-around offensive line. I would probably say, the Steelers you could throw in there with David DeCastro, Marquise Pouncey. That's a good one. Alejandro Villanueva. There's a lot of ones to throw in there. I don't think Dallas has the best anymore, though, because they do bring up a good point. You lose Doug Free, which is very valuable. Obviously, that's the right tackle position. And then you lose your starting guard and Ronald Leary, who they should be able to replace right away with Lyle Collins. A lot of people forget about that, but Lyle Collins is a beast. The kid coming from LSU, who my Dolphins were recruiting heavily. Jarvis Landry, Mike Pouncey, and somebody else. I can't remember who else went down there. Really tried to recruit him, but Joe Philbin and the Dolphin staff were too scared to sign him because he was dealing with that murder investigation and everything else like that. But that would have been one heck of a signing for us. I can tell you that right now. Because Lyle Collins, first round top 10 prospect going into that draft. If it wasn't for that investigation, he would have been a top 10 pick or from 1 to 15 in that range. That's how talented he is. And the Cowboys should be fine. The tackle position is going to be interesting to see if they can sufficiently. Doug Free wasn't that good of a tackle, by the way. So it shouldn't be that hard to replace. As I burp. Okay, this is an interesting news story. The Ravens have not contacted Gary Barnidge. Poor Gary Barnidge. Gary Barnidge, last 2 seasons, especially 2 seasons ago, former Carolina Panther, was a longtime Panther for a while, and then finally got his start on the Cleveland Browns. Had 900-something receiving yards, broke Ozzie Newsome's record. I think he actually had 1,000 receiving yards, and broke Ozzie Newsome's record, which is pretty dang significant. And then the next season follows it up with a pretty good season, but then the Cleveland Browns obviously are going to go with the youth movement down there in Cleveland with the additions of David Njoku in the first round. So it's understandable why the Browns got rid of him, but obviously the Ravens, what makes this interesting is the Ravens obviously, one of their, I can't remember who got suspended. Obviously, Dennis Pitta with the hip, he got cut. So they have tight end problems, and tight ends are pretty important to that offense. So there was an up. This is the article. The article is by Connor Bryan, and this is the report. There was an up. Let's see here. Let's see. I can't. It's loading. Excuse me. I apologize. Everybody, calm down. Last month in Baltimore. Let's see here. We'll just start here. And last month, so for some reason, half this thing is not loading. Last month in Baltimore, which released Dennis Pitta after he suffered yet another hip injury and saw the NFL had a 1-year suspension to Darren Walker. There you go. Consequently, the Ravens could stand to acquire help at the position, but it doesn't look as though that aid will come in form of free agent Gary Barnidge, the top tight end on the market. Barnidge told Glenn Clark Radio on Thursday the Ravens haven't reached out to him, saying, quote, "They know who to contact, they know who to call. I just know we haven't heard anything yet, which is fine." So there you go. Interesting. Gary Barnidge, he's one of those, he's a Jason Witten type of guy. He's slow, but he always finds, he's just a smart player, knows the open holes and zones, great route runner, great hands, one of the best hands in the league, and he's a big tight end, and he's a great run blocker. So he's valuable. He's obviously up there in age, but he's a good sub-package guy. And he's a good veteran player, especially on critical downs if you're lining up under center. So I would at least bring him in for a workout. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens with him. This next news story is concerning safety Marcus Gilchrist, who is the article or the title of the report reads safety Marcus Gilchrist to be cleared soon. This article is by Zach Link. Soon Marcus Gilchrist will be ready to audition for NFL teams. The free agent safety will be cleared for action in early August, according to Ian Rappaport of NFL.com. Giants 6-year vet tore his pectoral tendon last season and wound up on the injured reserve in mid-December. The safety has started all of his appearances for Gang Green all the way back to 2013. So there you go. Not a fit. I know it. If you're a Dolphins fan watching this, no, Marcus Gilchrist, I do not think we should pick him up. If you're wondering, I think he didn't have that great of a season last year in a very bad Jets secondary, and he was a big reason why they had not such a great year, and that's one of the reasons they went with 2 safeties in the draft with Marcus May and Jamal Adams. So yeah, no, I definitely do not want that problem on my football team. Let's see here. Let's keep going. We talked about the Tyrod Taylor situation in the NFL news update. To kind of branch off of what I was talking about, the Bills very indecisive on Tyrod Taylor, which I think is a bunch of gorilla balls. I don't understand. I just don't understand that, man. You have a quarterback, build around him, and just suck it up. Like what else do you want? Not everybody is Jim Kelly. You can win a Super Bowl with Tyrod Taylor as your quarterback. Is he the greatest pocket passer in the world? No. Is he a playmaker? Yes. So I don't understand it. And the offense that they built around him was very effective last season. They put great pieces around him. It's going to be interesting to see if that transition is intact. Do they still run some of the same formations that they did before? Going to be interesting to see, because I think that's a huge part of why Tyrod Taylor was so successful. And if you make him a pocket passer, he's going to look really bad. You have to move him out of the pocket. You have to do zone reads with him. You have to do trick plays in the backfield. A lot of motion going on. A lot of pistol formations. So yeah. This next news story: Broncos center Matt Pratis medically cleared to play. One of the more underrated centers in the NFL. He's also dealt with hip issues. If I'm not mistaken, I think it's his hip. I don't know if it's his back. But they do a similar situation what they're going to do with Mike Pouncey, but they've done it for a while with him. Just not practicing him, which I think is just the best thing you can possibly do. Finding a fit for DeAngelo Williams. Let's see here. That's an interesting topic. DeAngelo Williams. Oh, God. I can't believe he's 34. That makes me feel like, I don't know. That makes me feel old. 34 years old. I swear to God, it seems like, just yesterday that we saw him in Carolina. But, I've watched a lot of DeAngelo Williams over the years. Like I've said before, my brother is a hardcore Panthers fan. He was a Panthers fan during the bad days with, Jake Delhomme. He was there for the Matt Moore era. He was there for all that craziness. So he was obviously a fan before Cam Newton. So, I watched a lot of DeAngelo Williams in the backfield. Well, that was Jonathan Stewart and DeAngelo Williams, and it was one heck of a backfield. I think I think DeAngelo Williams can still help a football team out. It's gonna be interesting to see where he lands, because in my NFL news update I brought up the fact that the man had 11 rushing touchdowns and 300 plus receiving yards on 40 something catches and like 907 rushing yards, and that's in the backfield. Obviously, Le'Veon Bell took a leave of absence that year. I think it was due to suspension that particular year, but and then obviously he suffered season-ending injuries some point that year. So DeAngelo Williams seriously could be an impact player for any NFL team. It's gonna be interesting to see where he lands. This is another interesting kind of, it's weird to me. Darrell Green Beckham clears waivers, so that means he has not been picked up by a football team yet. Interesting. Interesting, man. One of the more, he was a second round pick, wasn't a high pick, so I guess it wasn't like a major bust, but man, did that guy have talent, and I really expected big things from him, and he has disappointed me, that's for sure. So let's keep moving on here. What else do we got? It's concerning Sam Darnold might wait until the 2019 draft. This is an old report. I think Daniel Jeremiah was talking about this on NFL.com. Obviously, Daniel Jeremiah, longtime NFL scout, but he was talking about how Sam Darnold has told, I guess people close to him that he might play another year after the season, and stuff like that. That's a bunch of baloney, in my opinion. I mean, unless he pulls a Marcus Mariota, which wouldn't surprise me. Then yeah. Yeah, but it's good. I don't know. It's gonna be interesting to see. I doubt he will. I think if you're gonna be in the number 1 overall pick in the NFL draft, why wouldn't you take that chance? You know what I mean? So it's gonna be interesting to see what he does. Sam Darnold looks to be legit. Has one of the more quicker releases I've seen of a NFL quarterback. A lot of people complain about his windup. But I don't think it's that big of a deal. He has a beautiful release, is my point. And that's not gay to say another man quarterback has a beautiful release, even though it sounds super weird. And I'm not saying, I'm not just trying to disparage gay people or anything. I'm just saying I'm not gay. Anyway, moving on from that, let's keep going down the list here. Again, not a lot to talk about, and you know why? Because the NFL season hasn't started, and it's really starting to wear on me. This is like the deadest period in sports right now. Baseball's going on. I'm not the biggest baseball guy, though. And basketball has stopped. It's bad. It's like, God dang it. Let's see here. I don't think there's anything really, yet. There's anything. Okay, we'll leave off on this. Which 2016 division winner will miss the playoffs? This is an interesting topic of discussion, I guess. Let's just try to figure this out here. As this loads, let's see here. Who do we got? Let's go down through these division winners. I can already tell you who's mine without even having to look at this list, to be honest with you. There's actually 2 that I have in mind. So out of the Patriots, Falcons, Steelers, Cowboys, Chiefs, Packers, Texans, Seahawks, this is to refresh your guys' memory, because I already knew it, okay? I'm an NFL expert, I'm just kidding. To humble myself, okay? I also had to look at the list to refresh my memory, even though secretly I didn't have to look at the list. Which of the years division, okay, I don't know why I read that. Okay, Patriot, okay, so, I know all the Dolphins fans want me to say the Patriots. I'll say it. The Patriots are going down. I just want to make playoffs, and I want to make some noise in the playoffs. So this really doesn't matter to me. Let's see here. Okay, so the 2 that I already have off the top of my head, the Falcons are not going to win their division, the NFC South, and then the Texans are not going to win the AFC South, which is kind of a clinky dink there. I think, the Titans are a very good football team, and they might overtake the Texans. Even though the Texans have one of the more talented defenses in the NFL, people don't realize how talented that dang football team is on the defensive side of the football. And Deshaun Watson, is he the franchise quarterback? Who knows? We'll see. I love Deshaun Watson. Coming out of the draft, I love Deshaun Watson. And see, we're getting into some. I really do love him though. I think he's gonna be a great quarterback. And with Mitchell Trubisky and Patrick Mahomes getting drafted over him, I thought was a little ridiculous. I mean, he played a defense that was the closest thing to an NFL defense that you're gonna get, and that's the Alabama defense, and he ripped them apart on the biggest stage in football. So yeah, I think he has potential to be a really, really good quarterback, and he's got good surroundings with Braxton Miller, Will Fuller, and DeAndre Hopkins with Lamar Miller in the backfield. Pretty good offensive line. He's got good tight ends in Fedorowicz. Not a lot of competition in front of him with Tom Savage, so hopefully he can take advantage of that. And hopefully Bill O'Brien isn't like a total, whatever. I mean, he's for a guy who comes from the offensive side of football, he's a quarterback murderer in a way, for a lot of different reasons. I don't think he's a quarterback-friendly coach. I think his system is very hard to learn. Obviously he comes from not New England's teaching, but his system in general is just so hard to learn. And you see some quarterbacks having a hard time transition. Brian Hoyer didn't, but he was coach. He's been under Bill O'Brien for a while. Anyway, let's get off the Texans. What else do we let's see here? Oh yeah, the Falcons. I don't think the Falcons are winning the division. This might be biased because my brother is a Panthers fan, but what they've done throughout the offseason, when you look at it, their offensive line is still a question mark for me. The additions of Matt Khalil, and their left tackle is a question mark, which is never a good thing unless they play Matt Khalil at the left tackle position. But they have a very good interior on the offensive line. Andrew Norwell, who's one of the best young offensive linemen in the league. Ryan Khalil in the middle, one of the better one of the best centers in the NFL, and then you have next to him Trey Turner, who's one of the best guards in the NFL, and he's only like I think 24, and he's made 2 Pro Bowls so far at 2 different positions, so he's legit. So their interior is really good, and the additions of Christian McCaffrey and the retaining of Jonathan Stewart, who's going to be more and more of a relief role, so that way he doesn't get injured as much. That's a great thing for them. Obviously, tight end Greg Olsen, who in my opinion is the best tight end in the league, broke the record for most consecutive 1,000-yard seasons 3 years in a row. Super durable guy. If you put on tape of him away in the Georgia Dome versus the Atlanta Falcons, you won't see a tight end other than maybe Gronk and Travis Kelce, I guess, take over a game like he did in that game. So, and then you look on the defense side of the football. I think their young corners in Daryl Worley, and James Bradberry on the outside, especially Bradberry. I think he has potential to be a really good corner in the NFL. He reminds me a lot of in the way he reminds me of Ronnie Lott is a lot of people forget Ronnie Lott played corner, and before he played safety, he's just a really physical corner, James Bradberry, and I think he can be somewhat in that vein. I'm not saying he's going to be Ronnie Lott, but he can be in that kind of vein of a style of a cornerback. Byron. A little bit more fit, I guess Byron Maxwell-esque, but a little bit more physical than Byron Maxwell is in terms of tackling, not pressing. So their defensive secondary is much improved with the additions. They're really old on the back end, which concerns me. With Michael Adams, something's wrong with me, but you know what I'm talking about. I forgot his name. I can't remember. Is it Michael Adams? I can't remember his name right now, but long-time safety, former Indianapolis Colt, great pickup from them. But he's really old. And then obviously Kirk Coleman, who's not that old, he's about 30 years old, so he's still in his prime. But their secondary is much improved. The defensive line is really good, and the linebackers behind that, obviously Luke Kuechly, Thomas Davis. Shaq Thompson. They got Peter Boulware. I'm getting his name mixed up right now. From obviously Clemson, who I thought should have been drafted at least. Great player. So their defense is much improved. I like the moves that they've made. If they could just stay healthy, that football team, and then obviously getting Christian McCaffrey, and then Curtis Samuel to help out Cam Newton, that's going to be big. They did lose Ted Ginn, but that's not that big of a deal. As a Dolphins fan, I think we all can agree on that. He's a great deep threat, but that's about it. And he can't run routes for crap and ball sack. But that is gonna be it, guys. I am Skags 1383. I will see you guys in the next one. Remember, this podcast posts every single Saturday, and trust me, this is I don't know. Listen, I hope this wasn't these NFL podcasts, and I want to like reassure you guys on this. I cannot wait till the NFL season starts, so we can add more segments into the show. Because as of right now, because I just want to let you guys know the future of this show. I'm going to add a segment where obviously we're going to go through every game of the week, and then we're going to go and just predict every single one of them. So that's going to be fun, and that's going to take at least 20 minutes, maybe even more than that. We're going to go real in depth in that. And that's going to be fun. We're obviously going to talk about, storylines that go out throughout the NFL league that the NFL fabricates for drama, which is always fun when that happens. I mean, my Dolphins, we're not even going to get into all that, but so that's going to be fun. I just can't wait for the NFL season to start, so this podcast can improve a little bit, because right now we're just going through NFL news, which isn't a bad thing. But yeah, that's going to be it, guys. I am Skags 1383. I will see you guys next Saturday. And I won't see you guys next Saturday, but this podcast will post next Saturday. My brain is scrambled right now, so that's going to be, guys. I'll see you guys in the next one.